We don't seem to ever be more than a day or two away from talking about money at the moment, and understandably so. There was a bit of confusion, wasn't there, about the energy price cap. And I believe the technical term is the messaging given out around it, the figures given out. And we're talking about rising inflation and base interest rates and what that means for you. There's a lot to sort of take in. So at this turbulent time, we thought we would try and keep on top of anything to do with personal finance. And to help us make sense of it this afternoon, I've been talking to Sam Mitcham, an accountant based in Todmorden.
Good afternoon, Richard.
Is there a very, very fine line to be trod here between being financially aware and financially worried?
Yes, I think that's fair to say.
How do you do that then? How do you make sure you're on top and know, but not lying awake at night worrying about stuff?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head a bit there, really. I mean, at the end of the day, anxiety is the fear of the unknown. So what we need to try and do is remove the unknown. And I guess the only way we can do that is by trying to educate ourselves and kind of future plan, really.
What does it mean to be financially literate then? What does it kind of mean for someone who even that piece of terminology is a bit of jargon?
I think cash flow management is where I would focus here personally. So I think a lot of people get, very anxious and very worried about where they're going to get, the amount of finances they need for everyday life. But actually, when you take a step back from that, they're not necessarily putting in place cash flow management. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody needs to sit there every week with a big spreadsheet in front of them, but I think there's a lot to be said in terms of actually sitting down and looking at what's coming in versus what's going out.
Once a month, is that's sort of enough for that though, isn't it?
I think that's fair, yes, if that, to be honest. I mean, it does, obviously it depends heavily on personal circumstances. Some people will have very structured and set income amounts, and it's potentially a little bit easier for those people to plan ahead. Other people, self-employed, for example, might have fluctuating income. So then obviously they would need to sit down a bit more regular and go through their personal finances.
How do you need to sort of look at the few months that we've got coming up? Because as well as the regular incomings and outgoings, the small matter of Christmas, and people sort of, I guess, need to start factoring that in, don't they?
Absolutely, yes. And I think that's why it is we are approaching a very difficult time of year for a lot of people, especially potentially those with young families, because what we don't want to do is let this kind of scaremongering that we're all feeling at the moment. And I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying that there is a lot of scaremongering going on, a lot of information out there at the moment that's making people worry. But again, I can't put enough emphasis on how much it can help to sit down and do a monthly budget and do that little bit of planning and just have a look at where they could reduce a few outgoings.
How much can the workplace help by re-educating or educating people on some of this?
I would say quite a lot, to be honest. I think it does, obviously it depends what kind of sector an individual works in as to, how much of that information would be readily available. But I think employers do have a responsibility, just a general care for their employees at the end of the day. And I dare say that this energy crisis is something that a lot of employees are worrying about at the moment. So as an employer myself, my staff members all have young families and they're talking to me about their financial worries, not necessarily from a, can I have an increase in my salary point of view, but certainly just asking me for, any tips that we could implement and, anything that I know of that could help them with their personal finances. And I think employers do have somewhat a responsibility to their employees with that.
That kind of falls into the well-being at work category, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. I would say so. Yes. I mean, certainly from what I can see at the moment, this is what most families are worrying about.
What else are people talking to you about, Sam? Because obviously you're kind of at the front line when it comes to this. What are people worried about? What are people looking for reassurance on the most?
I think definitely the energy bill crisis, the energy price cap is something that people are talking to me a lot about. Inflation and interest rates, these are all terms that, I deal with a lot of small business owners, and often personal finances and business finances is a very fine line. And, my conversations with clients will cross over that line. And I think that what I tend to see from small business owners is that they hear a lot of this jargon, a lot of this terminology, but don't necessarily know how it impacts them, yet they're already worrying about it.
Is there anywhere people can go for more information if they want to find out more about this? Anything we've talked about, Sam, resonates with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all have access to the internet these days, and just a simple Google search to work out how something that you hear on the news might actually impact you. For example, inflation or interest rates or energy price cap. I think so long as you make sure that you are looking at reliable sources of information, then there is a lot out there. I mean, for example, I'm an AAT licensed practice, and the AAT website itself has a lot of information out there about finances in general, not just accountancy related finances. Another thing I will say is look out for content put out by your local accountants. As an accountant myself, I don't just put things out on social media that's restrictive to filing tax returns and deadlines for company accounts. I will often put out information on government support packages, for example, for families, because obviously that does impact my client base. So I think that's another good place to look out for information.
Sam Mitcham, an accountant based in Todmorden, speaking to us here on BBC Radio Leeds. 3:21. Good afternoon.